Welcome. Good morning.
Good morning.
Greetings, everyone. Dr. Annette West, publishing pusher here. Thanks for joining me. In the JetNA Publishing, talking all things books. Yes, the operative words, all things. I'm excited you're here. You listen in, share your thoughts. You don't have to be live on the screen to be able to talk. And I want you to know your success is my business. I'm here to assist you, support, empower, inspire as we pull out those thoughts to get these books accomplished. Thanks again for joining me.
Good morning again. Welcome to Dr. Annette Publishing Pusher, talking all things books, our Thursday morning session. As you can see, I am out of my office studio and I am in Virginia. And wherever I can get a space to share, that's what I do. So thank you so much for joining me. I see Ashley, I see Sean, I see Miss Anna. Thank you so much for being here in the JetNA Publishing, talking all things books. Before I get started this morning, I'll start out by asking, does anyone have any questions? Any thoughts if they've looked at any of the videos that I've posted to the JetNA Publishing YouTube channel? I believe I have 8 videos on there now. And we'll be posting some more things. I did real good, y'all. Last week, I got the video in for last Thursday that day. Because if you're like me, you know what you need to do, but then you have so many things that need to be taken care of that something kind of gets pushed to the back. So I'm glad that I was able to get that video posted last week. And I think 1 or 2 people did go in and listen to the content. So that's what it's about, the ability to come into the Zoom space where it's open and you can ask questions and be a part of the discussion, or later you can always go and listen in to see what we have posted on YouTube, JetNA Publishing. So thanks again. Any questions? Anybody have anything they want to share based on anything we've already talked about before I share a little bit on a topic for today?
The one thing I would like some input on is website. Mel Vies and I have been working on a mailing list to primarily seminaries and libraries that we can use. And we're finding that the websites are organized so differently that there's no single way to get the information that we want for this particular project. And that has caused me to reconsider the way my own website is laid out, because I learned at a convention expo a couple of weeks ago that what I see on my laptop is not what people see and can navigate on their phones. And so if anyone has either recently modified or updated their website, or have anything they can share with us as authors, publishers, coaches, whatever, what are you finding? What platform are you finding most useful? And who are you finding to do the work to set that up?
I know for myself, Miss Anna, that's something I personally don't have to worry about because I have an admin and she does the research for me and gives me perspective as to where to best put the content. So, and of course, that's my daughter who's basically been working in our businesses since she was maybe 17 or 18 years old. She's managed things for us. So I know she just has the skill sets and she's able to really quickly go out and look for things and give me that information. But I know that's something that everybody doesn't have. Melvise, hi. What about your website, Melvise? What are you finding? When you look at, if you look at your website on your phone, does it look as professionally done as it does on the internet? Does the interface make a difference?
Yeah, so my website on my phone, it looks good. The only thing is the layout is a little different, or how you find the menu. It's like the three lines you have to tap, and if you don't know that's the menu, you wouldn't know that's the menu until you tap it. But I think that most uh websites, when you go on the phone, that's how the menu is set up. And I know, like, if you go to the books page, when you look on your computer, the books are spread out three three per line, for lack of a better word. When you go to the on your phone, there's just one, and you just gotta keep scrolling to see each book. But I find that the phone layout is pretty good. I use GoDaddy for my website, and yeah, I think the phone layout is pretty good.
And I started out back in 2006 using GoDaddy. And then I went to Weebly. I'm not even sure why we went to Weebly. We went to Weebly, and Weebly did us fine, but it just didn't have as much opportunity for expansion. So then we went to Wix, that has good a good variety of things that we can choose from to build that website even better. And I haven't even tapped into most of the things that they have. I think all of the ones, GoDaddy, Wix, Weebly, you can start out free with them, and then eventually, depending on what you decide you need, you can then upgrade. So that's the benefit. I say when you're first starting out, you're getting a website, go with free. You're not making money yet. So why would you spend hundreds of dollars for something? I mean, you're going to be successful, but right now you're starting out. Choose a site, go for free, and then as the resources come in, start building. Now, I just happened to, Miss Anna, since you said that, I actually pulled up my phone to look on the internet to see what I see when I pull up my jetnaypublishing.org. And as Melvise said, it does have the three little dots in the corner, the three little lines. If I click on those three little lines, it tells me my login, my home, about, books, services, and packages. So everything that's on the top line when I open up my computer is, but you've got to have enough sense to notice, okay, something looks different here. I'm like this. If I come to your website, Miss Anna, and I don't see what I think I should see, I'm going to look to see, well, is there an icon anywhere? Are there some lines anywhere? I'm going to start, I can't hurt anything. So I'm going to start tapping to see, because 99% of the time, if I tap, it's going to open and it's going to give me what I need. But I can't just not see it and say, oh, it's not there, because it is. So now I can close that. And when I go back, it lets me know, or whoever's looking, that what social platforms I'm on. So it has the Instagram icon, the Facebook, the Twitter, I think that's TikTok. So it's got all of that. It's got a login. And then the rest of the screen looks black. But as soon as I do this, I get my content.
And so what I needed to see was, how do people do this? And so this was a 2 hour expo during a lunch when business people were at lunch. And so they were trying to do things quickly. And so if I mentioned something and I had my business card, they'd quick log in, but it looked different. And so that's what I'm looking at now. How do people who are busy access a page? What are they looking for? What do they know to do? What do I need to show them how to do? And because Melvise and I are working on this mailing list, we have, I think, like 150 names on the list of universities and colleges. And as we go to each of those URLs, the websites are laid out differently. And if it takes me more than 6 or 7 minutes to get to what I need, I just put a red line through there and say, we'll come back to that and just do individual searches. But I'm learning what it's like to navigate a website, but also what I would like people to do with mine. And so whatever information people were willing to share today about how they use a website and how they've set theirs up. I currently use SiteGround as the host of my 4 websites, and started the same way, started free. But when you go from one website to the other, they charge you if you change from one to the other. And so it's probably better to sit in on sessions like this and find out who has the best services that you are eventually going to need. Because I started with GoDaddy. When I contacted people to update my website, they said, well, I use Weebly. And if I were to change from one to the other, it would cost to move one domain to another host site. And so those are things that we learn by sitting in here. And I really appreciate you giving us an opportunity to ask these kinds of questions. But I haven't made a decision yet. I'm going to keep listening.
Yeah. Yes, it is gonna cost you something. Shouldn't be too much, but it is gonna cost you something. And of course, the more we know on the front end, the better. But unfortunately, we just don't know many times. So we have to muddle through things to make the best decisions. And even sometimes when you go to these conferences and you're listening to people talk, they're talking so fast that you're missing most of, you got the concept, but the flow and how to do things sometimes is faster than I know. When I sit in something, sometimes I'd be like, what in the world did they just say? What are they trying to tell me? I just did not get it. And that happens. I know that now when I look back on my webpage, everything else is exactly the same flow as on my webpage. It's just that my information at the top of my screen has to be clicked with the 3 lines. Click the 3 lines and I get that same information. So I think that's that really is the variance in from my phone to my website. And I don't typically look at people's websites on my phone. I just like my computer because I'm a professor. I do a lot of my stuff on my computer and I just like my big screen. I like my big keyboard. I just like that. And so I don't do a lot of stuff on my phone. To me, this is just another asset that I have if I need it. But I'm a computer girl.
You've probably noticed going to conferences and even presenting at conferences. One of the first things people do is take out their cell phone, take a picture of the screen. And if your QR code is there, they can get to that website. But I was thinking more of incidental, I used to work with my business card. Very few people use business cards anymore.
Correct.
But when I give it to them, they click in, they've got those fast thumbs, they click into the website, but I was seeing them seem to struggle more when they were using their phone than I hoped they would have to otherwise. So I'll keep listening to keep up with what's going on today.
Sounds good. Melvise, did you have anything?
Yeah, I would just say that it is a good idea after you have your website set up to look at it on your phone, look at it on a tablet and see what the differences are, because there may be something you need to format a little different so that it'll appear better. Because from what I can understand, we don't have any control over how the phone version lays out, but you can change some of the formatting on your regular website that would affect how the web version, I mean, the phone version, format. So it'll always be a good idea to look. I've seen comments in some of the writers groups where somebody mentioned to an author, well, I went to your website and I don't see this or it doesn't do that. Well, I was looking on my phone and the author didn't even know that that's what their website looked like on a phone. So I would say always check your website. I mean, visit your own website at least like once a week on your phone and your computer to make sure that it's still up and running and to, see what other people are going to see.
I have learned that many of the new templates are designed for use on computers, tablets, and phones, and they will now automatically readjust. And once I become aware of this, when I looked on SiteGround, when I'm updating a page, you can observe it. What does it look like on a tablet? What does it look like on a phone? What does it look like on a laptop? But I did not know this before. And so I'm sharing it today in case there was someone who was thinking their website was gorgeous, but wondered why people weren't getting on there. And it might be because the navigation is not as simple as we had hoped it would be when we first chose that template.
And another thing that that kind of fits with this is not the web page, but I was thinking, Miss Anna, when we were and Melvise, when we're talking about the formats and the phone, the pad, the computer layout, that also when we create our books, we have to be very careful, because what we see on our computer in a 9 by 8.5 by 9 or whatever book it is that we have is not going to look the same when we start uploading it. So once we start uploading it, say we have our hard copy book and it's a 6 by 9, which is a standard layout. It's a 6 by 9. We've got it polished the way we want it. It's ready, it's done, it's published. And now we're going to go and open it up. People are gonna download our ebook now because we created an ebook, but we didn't pay attention and look at, like we were talking, the different way it's going to look on the different type of device a person uses. That 6 by 9 is not going to look the same on this phone. It's not going to look the same on the iPad. So we have to go back and readjust to ensure that when the consumer who is purchasing your product, because it's been purchased, but guess what? Now you don't want a negative report that they couldn't even read it, that they couldn't maneuver it, that they couldn't understand it the way it was laid out. So we have to even go back and pay attention to that. Because, for instance, if I have a 6 by 9 book, say a devotional, for instance, in a devotional, I might have some pages for people to answer some questions, and they have lines to answer the questions. I may have a reflection page for people to write things. Well, that's not going to fit on an ebook. I don't have place for lines and spaces. It's an ebook. They're not going to write in an ebook. So that means I have to be willing to do what? Go back and make some adjustments to that product to make sure that it lays and aligns correctly, because you might ask the questions, but they're going to go to their own notebook and write their answers because they can't write it on the screen. So these are just little things that we have to think about. So it's not just our websites, it's our books and our layout for our books as well.
Yeah, I would suggest that after you have the ebook converted, you need to actually open up the EPUB file. You can open it up. There's apps you can use, so you can open it on your phone, you can open it on your iPad and scroll through it and see what it looks like on the different size devices. And then that can help you go back to the original file and adjust it. Like I noticed, for instance, when I do ebook conversion, so you know how if you have a chapter title, right? So if the chapter title ends up taking up more than one line, you would put a return in the middle of the chapter title, so it'll even out on the page on the paperback, right? But if you have that return in there in the ebook, it might come out to being 3 lines. So you got to take those returns out before you do the ebook conversion. Same thing I noticed with bullet points. So if you have bullet points and they're justified, when you pull it up in the ebook, it looks awkward. So I have to format the any bullet points and left alignment so that when it converts to the ebook file, it does not look this, doesn't look funny. So yeah, I mean, every time I do an ebook conversion, before I upload the file, I always open it up on the app on my phone, open it up on the app on my iPad, and scroll through it and make sure that everything is good. Also, too, if you have photos in your book, you need to resize those photos, and they should not be any wider or higher than 5 inches, because if they are, they're not going to come across good on on an iPad or a phone. So all of that, you got to take all of that into consideration. You cannot just take your print ready file and convert it to a ebook without doing that. Or even, let's say, if you have in your book, you're referring to a certain page number, that you mentioned this on page number so and so. That's not going to work for an ebook, because ebooks don't have page numbers. So you're going to have to change that text to say you mentioned it in chapter 2 instead of page 10. You know what I mean? Things like that. Yeah, and the same thing with lines. If you had lines for people to work right, you need to take those lines out, because that's not going to translate, or convert to an ebook properly either.
So it's the little things that really make the difference. That's what we are hearing. I know I just spoke to someone. Oh, she was showing me what she was doing, and she had interviewed me on her podcast, and she posted on Facebook saying, "I'm so excited, blah blah blah, that I interviewed this person. Check her out on my website, on my Spotify." But she has no link. Like, what Spotify, right? So I called her up real quick. I said, "Hey, you need to go back. You need to put the link. Nobody's going to take the time to go and try to search you out, to search out your Spotify podcast. If you don't give the link, people aren't going to click. I mean, even if you give the link, people may not click, but at least if they want to click, it's there and it's available." And I said, before you put the link for them to click, you need to click that link to make sure it works, because we probably had this problem before. We knew the link worked, and all of a sudden this time it didn't work. But we didn't check it because we just always knew the link worked. And then it didn't. And then by that time, you're getting calls and messages from people saying, "Well, I tried to look at it, but I couldn't get, and I tried to look at it and I was going to purchase it, but this." So we lose out on people looking at our content and even purchasing our products.
Yeah, I never understood the concept of telling people about your work without providing a link. If you can, why not? Like, really, I see all the time, like on the list I have, the podcast, it also has Facebook groups where people can promote their work. And I'll see authors, but, "Oh, check out my book I wrote. This is the title." Yeah, okay, where's the link? Like, do you think that somebody's going to take the time to go searching, looking further? Then what if there's more than one book with your title? How are they going to narrow it down? Like, what's wrong with giving a link? And if you're really smart, give them a link to your own website so you can cut out the middleman. But that's a whole nother story.
One thing is, on some Facebook groups, if you put a link, they will take it off.
But that's different.
Yeah, okay. So she may, when she's saying someone may have been removed and not know that this particular group you can put links on. And so someone mentioned this, I think last week or the week before. We should always check the group rules, but some do not permit you to put a link. You can put the title, but you cannot put the link. If you do, they'll take your whole thing off. And so read the instructions, but know that you may just have to put specific information so that people can find you with fewer clicks, but you may not be able to put a link.
Yes. And I think, first of all, our content doesn't belong on every website just because we're connected to it. So I'm on some publishing spaces that are always asking for people to post a picture of your book and post a link and stuff. But I kind of watch those things to see how the momentum is flowing on it. And if I look back and I see that not people aren't responding to the people that are posting stuff, then I'm like, I don't need to post my stuff. Even though it's being offered in this group, it may just be offered for that person to make sure that their people are active on their page, but not necessarily that they are really promoting for their people that come to their page to really support the other people and what they're putting out. So I do pay attention to those things. And here's another thing that I've seen that we have to be mindful of. Maybe you have an event and you're telling people about where you're going to be, and you put your Zoom link, or you put your email address, or you put your link or something for people to access something that you have, and you put it on the flyer. But when you post the flyer, you don't put it in the comments, in the post comment section, because people can't often pull from the flyer. Even though we think we put the information there, a lot of times it doesn't transfer. So making sure that we have, even though we have it on the flyer, we also put it in the active part of the post where we can write content. Go ahead, Miss Anna.
That's one of the things that the QR codes are helping. If you have it on your flyer, include a QR code and someone can pick up their phone and scan it that way. But having it both ways helps for in case
Yes,
someone does not have it. But been doing a little bit more of that because I see more of that.
that's good.
Yeah, and the only thing with, I mean, I think you should have both, because let's say I'm on my phone, I can't scan a QR code if I'm on my phone.
Okay. So you mean like if you're actively doing something on your phone, then you can't also
Let's say,
simultaneously scan a
yeah, let's
code?
say I see the flyer on my
Mhm.
phone and it
Oh,
has a
got you.
QR code. I can't
Oh, I
scan it.
got you.
You see what I'm saying?
I got you. I got you. Yeah, that
Yeah.
makes sense. That makes sense, because you would have to see the QR code and then use your phone to scan it. But if it's on your phone, you can't scan it inside of your phone. So yes, that makes sense.
I'm surprised that some tech genius didn't come up with some solution to that.
It's coming.
Somebody's probably listening, and next week something will come up.
You do know that
But you can
somebody is
save the page.
actually
You can save the page and send it to yourself. So you
correct.
can do it at another time.
Correct. But you know, when Mel V said that, you know that we're on here, but you know somebody else is listening behind the scenes to everything that is being said. They didn't come into this session. How do I know? We're going to say something. Somebody's going to say something. When you go back to your Facebook, there's going to be an advertisement for something that you said. There's going to be on your phone all of a sudden an advertisement for something that you said. So there are powers. I've been like on my phone talking to somebody, and I can hear a faint somebody talking that's not in my, that I'm not talking to them. And I'm like, who is this? Who is this other conversation? But this Siri stuff, y'all, is real, or whatever they call these things. They are actually listening in to your conversation. What they call it, Big Brother is listening in. You better believe it.
Every single time, a phone conversation. I think the TVs, these smart TVs, listen too, because the next thing you know, you see the stuff coming on your TV. It's crazy.
That's what my daughter was like, well, Mom, you know, we were talking about such and such. And as soon as I got off my phone, I got a thing saying what we were talking about that we were going to look for. And it was already there. It's kind of scary. You really think about it.
Very creepy. Very, very creepy.
Mm-hmm. Very, very, very. All right. Well, we have like about 15 minutes left. So I'm going to share quickly. I had a lot of stuff that I had for this topic, so we'll probably just share it as we go through some weeks. I think I like the flow today where we just kind of started and had open dialogue. So I appreciate that. But I wanted to just share a little bit, also start talking a little bit about points to consider for effective interior book design. Points to consider for effective interior book design. And the first point that I thought about was the readability of the work. The readability. What's the font selection, font size, line spacing? So when we talk about the font selection, there are so many different fonts out there. And just because you might like a particular font doesn't mean it's a font that's easy on the eyes for other people. I remember telling one of my students, they submitted something and I said, you just bothered my eyes greatly in my reading. And they was like, I don't understand. And I said, we need to have a conversation. And I was like, he said, well, I don't want to hear about what you've done over here and over there. I asked you to use only this font and only this size. I have a rhyme and a reason for that. It brings consistency. And when we are writing our books, we want consistency in our flow. So we have to choose our font selections. What's our primary heading font? What's our title font, primary heading font, next level font sizes, where those placements are going to be. We have to consider all of those things, and all fonts aren't best fonts. And if you put a wrong font, and you think you got it the way you want in your book, and you go to upload it, the system will likely default it. It will either reject it or default it to one of the fonts that is accepted by that platform. What happens with that is now your whole layout might be readjusted and not the way that you want, because maybe your font was larger or maybe it was smaller. And it made the difference in the flow. So font selection, choose your fonts, choose fonts that are easy to read. Some of the common choices are serif fonts, Times New Roman, Garamond are typically good for the body text in your work. Font size, line spacing, ensure your text size is comfortable for reading. I have some books that are actually 14 font, but it was because there was a rhyme to it, even though 11 and 12 is typically the standard for point. 14 benefited the fact that they were going to be devotionals. I had a lot of senior readers, and they appreciated the font to be a little bit larger. We also have to think about line spacing, not too much spacing between lines. Double spacing is going to be too much. 1.15 to 1.5 are typically good line spacing. I actually followed Miss Anna's example. I think I did 1.13, I think it was, or something like that, 1.3 or something, and it seemed to be good. But whatever you choose, you need to be consistent with it. Miss Anna, you wanted to share?
There was one of the things you're talking about, choosing fonts. Who is your audience? One of the authors with whom I'm working is from Saskatchewan, and his audience are some of the Native Canadians there. And serif fonts are confusing for them to read. And another person is from Vancouver. And again, if your audience includes people who may read in a different script, or those who are from Asia, sometimes the serif fonts like Times New Roman and Garamond, and sometimes the Garamond is too thin. It's it takes up less space than the Times New Roman, and it seems like it's the same font, but I published 2 books, and one time I wanted to have fewer pages, and so I switched to the Garamond. A person who had read the first book said she could not read the second book comfortably. And the only thing I changed was from Times New Roman to Garamond. And so keep in mind, as you're saying, who is the audience? What are they accustomed to reading? And what language or script do they read in at other times? But that idea with different languages really struck me. He said, I can't use that. I said, that's standard. He says, but I want to sell my book. I said, go ahead.
Understanding different cultures is very important. Did you have anything, Melvise?
No, one thing I noticed too, when you do the ebook conversion, sometimes depending on what type of conversion software you use, it might not take that far. So that's another thing to be mindful of.
That's a good point. Thank you. Good points. That's good. That another thing that I was thinking about when it comes to effective interior book design is the consistency of the styles and formatting, consistency of the margins and alignment. When I say styles and formatting, headings, subheadings, body text, and your other elements throughout the book, that they are consistent, that a centered heading in one section is not a Times Roman 14, and in another section the same type of title placement, but it's a 16, and in another place it's an 18. No, you need to choose which one you want and then make that consistent for that level heading throughout. That means every chapter, say for instance, in your book, if you center your headings and you decide that you're going to go with Times New Roman, Times Roman or whatever, and you're going to say your headings are 18 font, the primary heading is 18, the subheading is 14 or 16 or whatever, then every chapter, that heading should be the exact same size and font. Consistency is important. And also margins and alignment. Keep consistent margins. Nothing worse than once you look at somebody's work, the margin is here, then you look somewhere else, it's here, then you look somewhere else, it's here. No, consistent margins and align your text to provide a uniform look. We are supposed to be professional in what we are presenting to our target audience, and therefore we need to make sure that we have readability in place, consistency in place. Anybody want to share? Hi, Kimberly, anybody want to share anything on consistency, styles and
Yeah.
formatting, margins and
Yes, so the margins, you have to be aware that the margins on the even pages are different from the margins on the odd pages, because the book binding needs that extra quarter inch to bind the book. So if you want your margins to look the same on every page, it's different. You have to use mirror margins, and you have to allow for that extra 0.25 inch on the inside margin for the binding, so that when they open the book, the margins will look even on the left and the right. That's really important. A lot of people don't realize that. Also with page numbering, if you're going to put your page numbers, if you want your page number in the bottom corner of your book, the corner on the even page is different than the corner on the odd page. If you put them all on the right side, then when you look at the even pages, when you look at the odd pages, the page number is going to be in the inside of the book. You know, it looks crappy, but you don't know unless you know. So, yeah.
Thank you. And that's one of the advantages of using a template that is designed based on the number of pages you have as well. Because as Melvise was saying, the binding in the center takes up different space if you have a lot of pages versus if you have a few pages. And some of the online resources will ask you what size book, what size margin, how many pages, and then they will generate a template that has a safe space to put that in. But those are the kinds of things to take into consideration. because the two of you who work with publishing know how much time it takes to get a manuscript in order because someone did not take into consideration that consistency and adjustment for left and right pages. Thank you for reminding us.
Yeah,
Yes.
another thing too is the first line indent. So a normal tab is a half an inch, but the tab for the first line indent for books is typically 0.25. A lot of people don't realize that either.
You know, I think this is why it's important for us to not just want to write books, but to be readers of books. We can learn a whole lot of good things by have read good books. And we will see a whole lot of consistency in the flow, consistency in styles, consistency in format when we look at the works of other people. So when people say, well, I write my books and I don't care about what other people write, I don't want to read a book from a person who doesn't read books. I just don't. I'm just saying, that's just me.
The library, go to the library and just start pulling those books off the shelves. Just pull them off the shelves. I know that the first time that Written Words published a poetry book, all right, I went to the library and took out like 10 different poetry books so I could look at the different type of formats that are used for different type of poetry books. Same thing when we did our first children's book. Went to the library and borrowed a whole bunch of different children's books so I could determine the best way to format that book. And then a couple of days ago, I went to the library and borrowed some books of short stories because one of my authors submitted short stories. So this will be our first short story book we're publishing. So I want to see what do the Big Five's short story books look like.
That's one of the things we ask. I'm a little earlier on the process than the two of you. I would ask authors to go to the bookstore and find books in the area that they think their book will be displayed. What do they have that you like? What do they have that you don't like? And then we will choose a template based on the competition and how you'd like your book to appear. Do you want it, like I said, sometimes they want it very different. But if it's too different, people will wonder if you know what you're doing. And so getting that balance between being consistent, but consistent with what? And what Melvise was saying, by looking at books in the library, you'll probably see all kinds of styles, but some things are consistent among them. And so asking our new authors to go to the library or go to the bookstore and pull books. When I was working with little girls, said, pull a book that you like. And they went to their bedroom, pulled a couple of books that they liked and said, what do they have? And that's how we moved on from there. So they know.
That's good. That's good. Another point I had was hierarchy and structure in your book. So you heard me talking about the headings, but headings and subheadings falls under that hierarchy and structure. Your table of contents, when we talk about the headings and subheadings, we need to establish a clear hierarchy of how our headings and subheadings will flow, because that's what is going to guide the reader through our content. And the table of contents is really the outline that we created for our book. Actually, because if you did an outline correctly, then you easily have your table of contents. People don't really understand that, but if you outlined your work correctly, that builds your table of contents. And your table of contents provides for the reader a well-organized table of the contents to help them to navigate easily through your book. So we need to know, we have an idea what we can expect in each chapter. And if there's a subheading also on the table of contents, we can see what some of the areas that you will emphasize under that particular headed section in your book. And we want to make it as easy as possible for the reader to navigate through the content that we are presenting. Any final comment before I get ready to close? Bye, Miss
Yes,
Hannah.
bye, Hannah. I have a quick question, Miss Annette. And what font would you recommend for the body text? What would be your top one or two?
My preferred is, now I do like Garamond by Miss Anna. I do like Times New Roman. I don't think you can go wrong with Times New Roman. I was trying to think of another one. Oh, there's another one that I like. Oh, come on. Let me think.
Palatino.
That's it. Palantino. Yes. Thank you, Melvise. That is exactly, like, you were reading my mind. I was like, I know it like the back of my hands, but I really like the Palantino also. So I would kind of do a comparison of the Time New Romans, which is a standard. Look at it, do the Palatino, like do a section with both of them and look at them and see which one you like best.
Okay.
And then once you have that, you can even do your headings. You don't have to have fancy headings and stuff. You could use the same headings in Palatino or Times New Roman, but you can decide whether the main one is going to be, italicized with it, if it's going to be bold with it. And that's what makes the variance in it.
Yeah,
Okay.
I tend to lean more towards Garamond. That's usually my first choice. Palatino would be my second choice. Times New Roman, I don't use Times New Roman too often, not unless the author specifically requested it, because I don't know, I just feel like it's so generic or universal. You see
It's
Times New Roman
standard.
all over the place. Yeah.
It's a standard. You can't go wrong with it. Let's put it that way. You can't go wrong with it because it is a standard. Now, the Garamond, you could also do 3. You could do your Times New Roman if you're interested. You can do your Garamond and you can do your Palatino and see which one you like the flow on. The Garamond seems to be a little lighter, I think, if I remember in my head at the moment.
How do you spell Garamond?
Garamond.
Mond. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I'm like Melvise, I say Times New Roman because it's a standard. And I've been using it like forever. So it takes no thought for me to use that. But I do give, when I'm talking to my authors, I do give them options.
Okay.
Because it's not my work, it's their work.
Yeah. And that's for novels and nonfiction books. Now, if you're going to do a children's book, there's a whole nother set of fonts that are preferable for children's books. So that's another thing that you have to be mindful of.
What type of
workbook?
Yep, what type of book you are doing is very important. But I'm going to end this right here because we like to stay at our 45 minutes and we've exceeded it a few. But thank you so much. I appreciate you all coming in. If you haven't already subscribed to the Jetnay Publishing YouTube channel, please do go to Jetnay Publishing on YouTube, subscribe, and I will be working my best to get this video posted today, tomorrow at the latest. And I believe there's already 8 videos there that you can take a look at. So thank you everyone for coming in. I appreciate you all, and everybody have a great rest of your day and week. Catch you later. Bye-bye.